in a situation where you felt, a strong conviction about something, a really clear sense of what felt right or wrong, but you just bit your tongue?
Mm,
Maybe you thought, oh, I don't want to seem judgmental. Or maybe you've heard someone say, almost proudly, oh, I don't judge.
right. It's definitely a common thing you hear.
It really is. It's this deep reluctance to voice an opinion, often coming from a good place, like wanting to be open-minded or kind.
Sure, the intention can seem positive.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into something really important, but often misunderstood. It's the difference between exercising judgment, which is like a vital internal process, and just judging.
Which usually means criticizing or condemning people, right?
Exactly. And we're not talking legal verdicts here. This is much more fundamental about how we navigate life and the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack why one of these is absolutely essential, like for growth, for peace, for understanding, while the other, well, it's usually unhelpful, even counterproductive. We'll look into why we mix them up so often and, maybe more importantly, what we might be missing out on because of that confusion.
Sounds good. Where are we drawing this from?
For this journey, we're looking at insights from just one really powerful document, exercisingjudgment.pdf. It offers a remarkably fresh perspective on this whole dilemma.
Interesting. A single source deep dive.
Yeah. All right, let's peel back the layers. Let's get into what this source actually reveals.
Okay. Well, it's quite striking, isn't it? The source jumps right in, highlighting a core problem in society today,
Which is?
that many people actively shy away from taking a public stand, or sometimes even forming a solid internal position on things.
Mhm.
And it's precisely because they're afraid of being seen as judging others. And like you said, they might even see this avoidance as noble.
It's almost like that cultural mantra, thou shalt not judge. But the source is suggesting that maybe this isn't always as virtuous as it sounds.
Exactly. It often shows maybe a lack of understanding about a really crucial difference.
Yeah.
Because the document is very clear. Exercising judgment isn't some optional extra. It's not just a social nicety.
Right, it's presented differently.
Very differently. It's framed as an integral and necessary survival skill, something all humans have and something we should develop.
A survival skill? Like, how so?
Well, think about our ancestors, right? They instinctively exercise judgment. Is this berry safe? Is that sound a threat?
Okay. Primal stuff.
Exactly. Primal acts of judgment, vital for survival. The source argues we need that same kind of discernment for our moral and social world, too.
So it's not a flaw to judge in this sense. It's more like a cognitive muscle we need to build up, not avoid.
Precisely. And the benefits of actually developing this skill sound pretty far-reaching, according to the source.
What kind of benefits are we talking about?
Well, the more discerning we become by exercising sound judgment, the more we grow.
Mm.
Not just intellectually, but psychically is the word used.
Psychically.
Meaning in our deeper, emotional, intuitive understanding of ourselves and the world, it leads to, maturity, a richer way of being.
Okay.
So this kind of judgment is seen as healthy, good for our physical, mental, and spiritual growth. It helps us evolve.
So if this kind of judgment, exercising judgment, is so essential and good, what are we mistaking it for? Why does judging have such a bad rap?
Yeah, that's the core tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because when we talk about judging in that negative way, criticizing, condemning, blaming the source is very clear.
Yeah.
That approach, it seldom helps the other person change.
Right. It usually backfires.
It often just makes people defensive. So yeah, it can be totally counterproductive. Helpful.
Okay, so if exercising judgment is this beneficial, inward-looking skill for growth, what's the actual difference in how we, direct it? Where does the energy flow?
This is really critical, what the source emphasizes here. Exercising true judgment is primarily directed inward.
Inward, okay.
It focuses your attention on pulling out useful lessons from what you observe around you. Think of like a scientist observing something.
They're not condemning it, just understanding it.
Exactly. They want to understand how it works, learn from it. And this recognition, this learning, it might not even need you to say anything out loud. It's fundamentally about your own learning, your discernment,
Yeah.
building your inner wisdom.
So it's less about pointing out someone else's mistakes and more about thinking, okay, what can I learn from this for my own life?
Precisely. That's the core of it.
But what if you do feel the need to share that insight?
Well, the source suggests that if sharing it could genuinely benefit others, then yeah, it's proper to do so. But, and this is really key, it has to be shared without commentary on the character of the person or event.
Ah, so focus on the lesson, not the person.
Right. The universal principle, not the individual's failings.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And how does that contrast with the negative kind of judging?
Well, the criticism or condemnation, it's directed outward at a specific person or a group. And it's often, tinged with prejudice. It comes from this mistaken idea, maybe unconscious, that you can force someone to change just by pointing out their flaws.
And we all know how well that usually works, don't we?
Haha, right. Someone tells you what's wrong with you, your first instinct probably isn't gratitude.
Definitely not. It's usually defensiveness, or who are you to tell me? Or just shutting down completely.
Exactly. That unwelcome intrusion almost always just triggers defensiveness. And that reaction itself should tell us something important,
What's that?
that real lasting change. It can only come from personal recognition. A person rarely changes unless they themselves are willing and ready to use their own judgment about their actions.
You can't force insight on someone.
You really can't. You can't force learning or growth.
It really is a strange paradox, though, isn't it?
Mhm.
So many of us look around and, we complain about falling standards in public life, online, wherever.
You hear it a lot.
But the very same people are often so hesitant to actually take a stand, publicly or even privately, against the things they complain about. All because they don't want to judge.
It's like we're caught in this kind of societal paralysis.
Yeah. And the source digs into why we're so reluctant, right?
It does. It spends quite a bit of time exploring the reasons behind this. It points to different misinterpretations going on.
Like what?
Well, for instance, people with religious beliefs might hold back because they think of biblical quotes about not being judgmental or forgiveness or not casting the first stone.
And they take that to mean avoid any kind of judgment, even the internal kind.
That seems to be the interpretation the source is questioning.
Yeah.
They might see it as a command for total non-assessment.
Okay. And what about people who aren't religious?
Well, what the source calls modern-day free spirits might lean on certain psychological ideas, things that emphasize acceptance, self-expression, not stifling individuality.
Right, those are common themes today.
Yes, and while those ideas have value, the source suggests they sometimes get twisted into meaning we should avoid any kind of self-critique or accountability. Like any moral framework, even your own internal discernment, is somehow restrictive.
That's interesting how different worldviews can end up in the same place, this reluctance to exercise judgment. But the source brings in a specific example to counter this, doesn't it? Something about Christ.
It does, yeah. A very powerful one. The story of Christ and the woman caught in adultery.
The one they were going to stone.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He saved her from being stoned, yes.
Yeah.
But he didn't just say, oh, it's fine. He acknowledged her action. His words were, go ye and sin no more.
Ah, so he acknowledged the transgression.
Right. He helped her see her actions and exercise her own judgment about them, but crucially without condemning her as a person.
That's a subtle but huge difference.
It is. And the source contrasts this with some interpretations of modern psychology. It's careful to say modern psychology offers invaluable insights, of course. But the source suggests some applications might overemphasize individual expression, maybe sometimes downplaying personal accountability, or the role of our own judgment in making moral choices and facing consequences.
Wow, that's quite a point. Acknowledging the act without condemning the person. So beyond these philosophical or psychological interpretations, what about just internal fears? What holds us back personally?
Yeah, the source goes there too. It talks about some very human fears, like maybe we're afraid we couldn't actually set aside our own prejudices if we spoke up.
Okay, that's relatable.
Or maybe it's deep empathy. Or even feeling like a hypocrite because, we see similar flaws or temptations in ourselves.
Well, absolutely. It's hard to call something out when you recognize it, even a little bit, in yourself.
It really is.
And then there are the external pressures too, right? It's not just internal stuff.
Oh, definitely not. The source is very clear about the real fear of, well, consequences. Suffering professionally, being canceled or socially ostracized, maybe even persecuted, for expressing a judgment that goes against what the experts or the general public think is already settled.
Yeah, in today's climate, speaking up can feel really risky.
It carries genuine risks, absolutely.
So what's the big takeaway from all this reluctance? What's the consequence?
Well, the source argues the consequence is pretty significant. All this caution leads to inaction, and that inactivity actually weakens our ability to exercise sound judgment over time.
Like an unused muscle.
Exactly. It atrophies. It makes us less discerning, maybe more easily swayed.
That's a stark warning. We're losing a vital skill by not using it. So, okay, let's say we manage to overcome this reluctance. We decide to cultivate this skill. What does sound judgment actually look like in practice then? What's its real goal?
Right. This is a really important clarification the source makes. Exercising judgment should not mean supporting some dogmatic, rigid position.
Okay, so it's not about being stubborn or self-righteous.
Definitely not. That kind of attitude, the source argues, just leads to intransigence, rigid stances, and often, well, violent clashes.
Yeah.
Like we see with so many issues today. The source mentions things like abortion, gender, race, where that unwillingness to really understand just fuels conflict.
Instead of resolution.
Exactly. So the true objective of exercising judgment is to pull out beneficial lessons for yourself or for society. And this is the key again, without focusing on the character or moral flaws of the people involved.
Focusing on the lesson always.
Always. That's the approach the source says can actually produce good results. Good judgment should always contribute to peace, to genuine problem solving, something constructive. Upbuilding is the term used.
Upbuilding, I like that. And how do we know if our judgment is sound? If it's coming from the right place?
Well, the source offers a really powerful yardstick for that. It comes down to honestly acknowledging your motivation.
Your motivation, how so?
It asks us to really look inside and ask, is this position driven by genuine selflessness, like a real drive for the common good? Are you truly trying to be, in the source's words, your brother's keeper? Or is it driven by something else? Ambition. Wanting to promote yourself, wanting to gather followers, or just affirm your own identity or group.
Wow, that really forces some serious self-reflection, doesn't it? It sounds like true judgment needs deep self-awareness, radical honesty almost.
It absolutely does. And the source suggests that to really make that distinction sincerely in our motivations, we also need to become attuned to something deeper.
Which is?
What it calls the spiritual laws of creation.
Yeah.
Think of them like universal principles, sort of like physics, but operating on the level of human existence and interaction.
Okay. Spiritual laws? Like what?
The paramount one, it states, is love,
Mm.
but expressed very practically as being thy brother's keeper, that fundamental selfless concern for the common good.
Yeah, that's a big concept. How does connecting with that help us exercise better judgment? And for listeners, maybe, what's the first step towards that?
Well, the source explains that as we develop this kind of awareness, this maturity rooted in concern for the whole, many common arguments just dissolve.
Why?
Because our judgments, our positions, start genuinely aiming for the overall common good. And since these spiritual laws are seen as upholding creation itself, decisions based on them can only lead to growth for us and our neighbors. That eliminates the basis for conflict, criticism, condemnation.
That's a powerful vision of harmony.
It is. And the source also brings in a reference here to the book In the Light of Truth, sometimes called the Grail Message.
Okay, what's the connection?
It uses that work to emphasize that everything we encounter in life is actually a learning opportunity. Even the situations we're reluctant to judge, they're meant to help us gain insight. About others, yes, but maybe even more about ourselves, our own motivations.
So if we shy away from looking closely at something because we don't want to judge or be judged,
We're actually missing the lesson. We're
Yeah.
missing the chance to learn something invaluable about ourselves and the way things work.
so avoiding scrutiny isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's like avoiding growth, avoiding understanding. So the first step sounds like it has to be internal.
Exactly. From this perspective, the very first step is striving to recognize and then consciously work to overcome whatever it is inside us that makes us want to condemn or criticize or pursue selfish aims when we form an opinion.
Right. Turning the spotlight inward first.
Yes. And as we get better at doing that, we free up our inner power, the power to exercise judgments that are actually in harmony with that universal law of love, about everything we encounter.
And that allows us to really learn from everything.
That's the idea. We can truly begin to discern, to learn from every single experience life brings our way.
And it sounds like this doesn't just lead to understanding the world better, but understanding ourselves much more deeply too.
Indeed. Because the real focus of this kind of discernment is internal, right? So we gain huge insights into ourselves.
Which probably helps us understand others better too.
Absolutely. It fosters a better understanding of our fellow humans, the challenges they face. And when you're operating from that less prejudiced, more understanding inner space, it becomes much easier to accept your own faults too.
Ah, so you can exercise judgment on yourself more easily.
Exactly. Rather than projecting criticism outward all the time, it becomes a pathway to genuine self-acceptance and continuous self-improvement.
Wow. we've really covered some ground here. Exploring that profound, vital difference between exercising judgment, that inward skill for growth, peace, problem solving, and just, well, judging, which so often just externalizes blame and shuts things down.
It's a critical distinction.
And the key takeaway seems crystal clear, doesn't it? The real power of true judgment isn't in shouting opinions louder. It's in its inward focus, its motivation.
Right. Is it driven by a desire for the common good, that idea of being thy brother's keeper? Or is it driven by fear or ego or ambition?
A deep empathetic understanding of our shared journey rather than just narrow self-interest.
Ex-
So here's a thought to leave with everyone listening. In a world that's often so quick to label, to condemn, what might actually shift if you committed to exercising your own judgment? With real introspection, with that sincere motivation for the common good.
Instead of just shying away from it or defaulting to outward criticism.
Right. What valuable learning opportunities might you be missing right now by avoiding scrutiny in your own life or in the world around you?
That's definitely something to reflect on.
It is. We invite you to reflect deeply on your own interactions, your own motivations this week. Until next time, keep diving deep.